And so the issue of creating value with data or agentic and so forth starts with this. How can you actually create data products that are correct?
Welcome to It's About Data, episode 77. This is a conversation with Florian Douetteau, CEO of Dataiku.
Well, hello, everybody. We actually, this is a really special occasion today. We're actually we're in San Francisco for Snowflake Summit 2026. We're also but technically we're actually off site. We're about a block and a half away at Dataiku HQ. Dataiku, of course, was named once again Snowflake Partner of the Year this year. Congratulations. And we're joined, this is a very special session. We're basically flattered to be joined by our special guest, Dataiku CEO Florian Douetteau, and I hope I pronounced it correct them all this time.
You did, and thanks for having me, and welcome to the nest.
Yes. So Matt, you said that you have a stumper to start out with because you're the data scientist.
I wouldn't call it a stumper. Actually, it's from the press release for the Product Partner of the Year 2026 Snowflake. So it talks about how Dataiku is very good at helping companies move from AI pilots to governed production scale deployments. And frankly, governed and production scale are two things that we talk a lot about on this show, but they're hard, right? So give us, what's Dataiku's perspective on this? Like, how do you make AI, how do you go into production scale and governed? What are the steps to make that happen?
I think that in the enterprise, in the market as we're in today, we have to acknowledge that creating stuff is no longer a limit. That's my mindset, at least.
Yeah.
Like, you can, in theory, vibe code everything into existence. Over the weekends, you can probably vibe code anything you want and have lots of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine you're back on Monday in your company. How does it work in practice? And that's where governance kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning any data you produce needs to be validated. You need to be able to explain it and so forth. And so the issue of creating value with data or agentic and so forth starts with this. How can you actually create data products that are correct? Starting point. And correct, meaning that they are tested. You've got multiple people in the organization that actually understand it, because if it's only one person, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you put some form of governance and testing around it, repeatability, and so forth? What we building with Dataiku on top of Snowflake, and it's notably one product we launched co-build for Snowflake, is providing this ability to create and vibe code things into existence, but vibe code data pipeline or agentic pipeline that are visual tested and governed, meaning they are within a framework where it's easy for people in the business to understand what's happening. Because the issue we are already having, all of us, with agentic technology is not about like imagining things and turning something we imagine into something that looks real. It's about testing whether the thing is actually the thing we expect it to be. And so that's what our focus in. And I think that's this need of control and governance is now what's blocking people from creating value with data.
Right. Let's dive down. Let's draw back here and go into some of the building blocks that we have to work with. And I mean, we're a little biased here. Our podcast is It's About Data. So I'm going to start with data. You take a look at the landscape in most organizations today, and data is scattered. It's inconsistently governed, if it's governed at all. And so, but obviously with AI, it really raises the stakes. And so the question I want to ask you, Florian, is that at this point, what does it take, just as for starters here, to make the data AI ready?
So I won't go into let's all build semantic models and ontology and data quality and so forth, because meaning you've heard that before and it's not new. So I won't repeat that even if I believe it, okay? But my particular take for now a couple of weeks is that even if we do all of that in practice, the data that matters, the data products that are hidden and that matters, those shadow data products are, for instance, in Excel. Do you remember Excel? Yeah. You remember those like Excel with 30 tabs and maybe even some VBA in the middle? Yeah. You've seen those. Those shadow data products are the one used by people in the business. And the next step of data readiness for agentic is about migrating those shadow data products into governed areas, move them
Mm.
into Snowflake or whatsoever. And it doesn't mean like move the Excel spreadsheet into Snowflake as a table, like that would be too easy. What you really need to do is translate the business logic that is within an Excel into pipelines so that you can repeat them and turn them into a process. And what we've seen more and more among our customers using our platform is indeed using our platform to do this type of automated translation of Excel, for instance. Because that's the issue of data readiness. You still have too many things that are, especially the things that are valuable, that are stuck on your laptop, scattered. It's not just like scattered across various data marts and data warehouses. To some extent, that part is manageable. The next layer is everything that is at the bottom, like on the laptops, and move that up. And not move that up as just like copy the thing because it has no value, is like move the actual business logic. And that's, I think, the next step for data readiness, which is probably not understood enough in terms of how important it is in order to actually create value with agentic then down the line.
Lineage is huge.
Yeah.
So let me. So this really resonates. This Excel conversation. This is exactly what I've seen over and over again doing data engineering consulting projects. In fact, quite often, if you talk to the company's CFO, they're building out the quarterly report for the SEC and Wall Street in an Excel spreadsheet with 30 tabs, just like you say with VBA. Yeah. How can agents contribute to this process, but in a way that's trustworthy and production worthy, governed properly?
But now you can actually, in our platform, you can translate this type of Excel spreadsheet into an actual pipeline, meaning something deterministic. And this can be largely automated. Actually, this translation. We've automated this translation. It's no longer a big data engineering project to rebuild the business logic of the CFO into a few weeks consulting gig. That's something you can do in a few minutes to a few hours, depending on the complexity, including all of the application on top so that the CFO can actually look in the data and create a summary of these hypotheses with a summary of the reports automatically. So those things now takes minutes. And that's what's different. Like you can actually translate any type of Excel into, for instance, as a pipeline with its business logic. And indeed, before we all heard about those projects where you had like this complex financial modeling that needed to be translated and like data engineering and let's build the data model, And a few weeks later, it's not really happening and it's complex and doesn't reconciliate and so forth. And then you just dump the data engineering project to the bin. Okay. Which is why everything stayed in Excel. Now we've seen it and people are doing it with our product. It's no longer the case. And so you could actually go beyond that now. And it's important because having this reconciliation as a data pipeline is the first step for the CFO to be able then to add some agentic process on top that will inspect automatically some things and so forth. Because if you don't do that first, you can't really apply the agentic layer where it's not just actual agentic intelligence or automation automatically and reliably.
Right. And it's a very interesting point there in terms of that agents can really help us, basically do this work of taming data, of governing data. But let's look at it from the other side, which is that, from your standpoint, from your work with, with your customers, we're talking about, the whole industry is talking about agents right now. Agents are the future. And where are customers at with regard to, obviously within your solution, you have agents that can perform a lot of these functions. Okay. But for customers who are basically trying to now work with agents, where are they at right now? Where's their comfort level? Where's their understanding?
I think it's still baby step and early, meaning you've got customers having from a couple of agents to some having thousands of agents. But here, if you go one step further in analyzing what's happening, when it's a few thousands, typically a lot of those are more glorified assistants, as in glorified RAG, as opposed to true agents. And I think we are at the beginning of it, but even we start seeing customers getting more and more sophisticated in terms of their agentic use cases. What I find interesting as a subset of agents, and that we focus on in particular at Dataiku, it's something I think we interesting and worth building, is the category of agents that are semi-deterministic. Okay, it's kind of like unclassified today, all of those agentic categories. But in particular, it's things such as procurement optimization or supply or building your marketing budget, those type of things where you need some form of determinism. It's not like an open claw doing project management that will run over the weekend, hoping that you will get smarter or smarter every weekend, so that you can actually end up by planning your vacation. We're not talking about this type of agent. We're talking about an actual thing that can optimize a bit your procurement, for which lots of practical rules needs to be in place.
Right.
And so it actually looks more like something that is agentic at some edges and some step, and like we can ingest the data and be smart on some spec, but also have like lots of deterministic step, because you kind of like want to be sure about what it's doing. And maybe even at the middle, it's a predictive, a good old like decision tree that is actually taking the real decision you want to take. So this category of agent is super interesting, because I think it's very important, in particular for back office tasks, which is where a lot of the leverage is for agentic today.
Yeah. It's interesting that basically, like when we talk about determinism and agents, that it's not necessarily throwing out all the old with the new. It's like there's some valuable things that we have from rules and from determinism.
Yeah, because it's auditable, and also just from sometimes just latency and cost perspective, it's a very efficient way to do it. But again, it doesn't mean that you don't use agents in order to actually create those agents that are deterministic in the middle. So it's a bit meta, but like you are agentic in the way you build, and then the agents themselves are agents and combination of agents where you combine rules and agents. That's how many times have I said agents in the last minute? Oh my God.
I have not been counting.
We'll give an award at the end of this month, because this is Snowbricks month. Who mentions agents the most?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that agent is only 5 letters, because otherwise.
Oh my God. Please ask a question and don't use the word agent.
Okay, well, I'll try. Okay, so I'm going to ask a kind of higher level question here. So Dataiku really emphasizes human in the loop. That's what I've gotten from reading your materials. Your website talks about people orchestration governance, people being first. You've talked about agents, as an enabler for CFOs as opposed to replacing a CFO. How do we train people to use AI technologies like the agents, the replacement for Excel, but also fight complacency, which has been in the news a lot, where people start trusting things they shouldn't trust, where maybe the CFO doesn't fully analyze the report and make sure they understand the results before submitting them for the Q4 report. How do we find that balance? How do we train people to not trust AI too much while making it a useful tool?
Yeah, I think that one line of thought could be that you can't train them. They need to make their own mistakes first and foremost, and then like looks a bit stupid and be like, oh, maybe I should think twice before just vibe coding or like pushing all of my Excel into Claude and asking for the answer and hope that the answer is correct.
What else do we learn? How else do we learn?
Yeah. And that's mistakes is probably part of the training there. I think that what is missing in the enterprise is that when you think about it, the way you are building application now is very different. It used to be, I don't know, data, services, UI, whatsoever, like this type of stack. Now it's more like you've got lots of tokens, right? They're expensive. And it's more like the layer is more like you've got a harness, like some protective layers in which you are building your agents, and they just, whatever they do is what you need. And indeed, the thing is that for certain type of use case or users, you need a certain type of harness to make sure they don't make crazy mistakes. Okay. If you are, again, building your marketing message, maybe you can just use Claude connected to SharePoint. That's fine. Meaning, ultimately, it's very hard to create something that will ruin your company unless you are very stupid when using Claude building your marketing messages. But if you're trying to actually reconciliate into your financial data, that might not be optimal, or it's kind of like risky, especially if it's the actual report at the end. You probably want another system in place. So indeed, for this type of setup, you need another type of harness, ultimately, to build the agents. You need an harness where the agents will be built in a certain way, where the reconciliation would be an actual data pipeline that you can see, like, I take this data, and for instance. And so that's the thing that we have to all learn as a practitioner of agentic and creator of agent, is that certain type of user for certain use cases will need a certain type of protection layers, like certain type of harness, in order to host the agents they are building. And so Dataiku, the way we are positioning ourselves I would say in a sophisticated manner in terms of explaining what we do, is indeed harness for people, especially business users that needs to build agents that have lots of decision-making stakes so that they can build reliable agents. If you're a data engineer or a data scientist, maybe you can vibe code everything into existence and be very good about it. Meaning, I don't doubt that, especially you.
Yeah.
But if you want everyone in the business to be able to actually leverage the value of agentic, you can't expect everyone to be able to read Python and understand what they're doing when they vibe code with code. And so that's where actually you need a different paradigm in order to be able to derive value from agentic.
And I think for you, for Dataiku, it's the challenge is especially pertinent because you've actually, I think, when you really distinguish yourself, is that yes, you do appeal to data scientists, but you've also brought basically business analysts, or what we used to call power developers or whatever, into machine, there is a machine learning. So I'll ask the final question, which is basically, what's your approach to kind of like putting together this harness to essentially kind of, basically keep people sort of properly focused, properly aligned?
Yeah, but that's meaning ultimately the formula of success for AI, it's always like this trade-off between people and governance. Like if you give power to more people, you also need to raise the stake in terms of, and if they can actually orchestrate any type of things together, you're giving lots of powers to people. So you also need to tune up the level of control and governance. Because if you just tune up, I give lots of orchestration powers to lots of people, you're just creating chaos. So indeed, the trade-off is you give power to people with in terms of building lots of data pipelines by themselves, but in a way that is centralized, controlled, where IT come after the fact and say, you should not be using this column in order to do this type of projects. What have you been doing? You're stupid. You will get fired. Please stop doing that. And now, in fact, automating this type of controls. And that's the type of things that are required in the enterprise in order to actually be really able to leverage the value of data. Because if you don't do that, the other way to implement it for IT is to say, well, nobody will actually have access to data, and you have to ask us in order to get anything done, which is unfortunately what lots of organizations are still doing, which is why they don't derive value from data, because everything is blocked at the starting point.
Yeah.
And so you just have like the CEO saying, you should do more data. And then people, the practitioner in practice saying like, okay, we are just waiting for access or to be able to do it. So we are not actually doing anything.
Let's talk about
which is fine, because now no one is losing their job because we don't derive value from AI. That's the type of like paradigm, the type of potentially contradiction that exists currently in the enterprise.
Well, I guess that's sort of this is our goal here is really to start a conversation. We can never finish it, but we hope to have you back, basically where we can follow this one up, because it's we've hardly scratched the surface here. Florian, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thanks you for having me.
Thank you.